Right now, the query in our model code is hard-coded to use 108 in the where clause. We need to replace that number with the SKU variable we receive from the controller code. If someone visits shirt/101, the controller passes in 101 to the getProductSingle function, and the model should use that value in the query. If someone visits shirt/132, then it should use 132 in the query. But what if someone types this into the web address? Think for a minute about what that might do. What if that whole string got inserted into our simple select query before it was executed? The query would look like this. With the semicolon, that becomes two queries, one to retrieve the product information and one to drop the whole products table. If those two queries got executed, it would remove the whole products table from our database. This kind of attack is called a SQL injection because another query, one you never intended to run, would be injected into your code. When dealing with values from outside your code, you'll often hear these two rules: filter input, escape output. We talked about escaping output when we looked at the contact form earlier. This is a perfect example of when you would need to filter input. I would do that in two places. Open shirt.php in your text editor. It takes the value for SKU from the web address and puts it in a variable here. This value would be considered input since it comes from somewhere outside of our code. Right now, our SKU should always be an integer. For a SQL injection to work here, the specified SKU would have to be something other than an integer. One way to filter input here is to make sure that the SKU is an integer. If it's not an integer, we could simply change it to be an integer like this. We discussed this int_val function back when we talked about paginating a list page. We used this function then for the same thing, to filter input to make sure that page number was an integer. This function filters the input, removing any non-integer material. You might also hear this process called sanitizing input, because you are removing any harmful material from the input and making sure that only clean, sanitized input comes through. It's a good practice to sanitize the input immediately after you receive it. In this case, I get the value from the query string and sanitize it in the same line of code. Our controller code now sanitizes the input it receives from the web address. The other place we want to sanitize or filter input is in the model. We'll use another method of the PDO class to make sure our query is not subject to a SQL injection.